Hi, Douglas Simonson here, coming to you from Mexico. Keep watching because today I'm going to show you how I turned this photo into this painting. I'm even going to tell you how I met the model. I'm doing a male nude today, just so you know. And the model is Fabian. I met Fabian in the gym. And the first time I saw Fabian walk in, my jaw dropped. I was like, this guy is so gorgeous. He would make a great model. But I was so intimidated by his looks that I didn't talk to him at first. But after a while, working out in the gym, we got to be friends and I got more comfortable with him. And I told him what I do. And I asked him if he'd be interested in modeling. And he was. So he came to my apartment, we met, and we decided to work together. He was a little shy at first, but after he got to trust me a bit, he loosened up and we had a great time. He had fun and I got some great photos. And by the way, if you like Fabian and you want to see more of him, I have an ebook called Fabian on my website, which you can download, which shows the best photos from that photo shoot. Like most of my ebooks, it's small enough to download fast, but big enough to have a lot of detail in the photos. These are some of my favorite photos from that session with Fabian in the shower. When you've got a really hot guy and you get him wet, it is hard not to get great photos. Get him soapy and it's even better. One of these shower photos is so great that I decided to make a painting from it. So this is the photo I'm going to be working from today, and this is the tweaked version. I always tweak the photo in Photoshop to make it easier to paint from. And if you want to know more about that, you can see my video here on my YouTube channel called How to Use Photoshop to Make Photos Easier to Paint From. Anyway, the reason I do this is so that I can reduce the complexity of the original photo to show the areas of light and dark and the areas of color more clearly. They're simplified, they're more clearly defined. The other reason is because there's less detail in it after I tweak it, and I'm less likely to get caught up in detail and more likely to focus on the big shapes. And that's really important because when you get the big shapes right, the details will take care of themselves. I started this painting in the usual way, which is I transfer the image to the canvas with pencil, and by transfer the image, I mean the big shapes, the simplified image, and then I cover that with a wash, an acrylic wash, usually dioxazine purple and burnt umber. While that wash is drying, I start mixing color. And what I do is mix the 4 or 5 most basic colors I'm going to need just for the big shapes. You don't want to mix all your colors before you start because you never know how they're going to actually look once you get them on the canvas. So I usually just mix the basics and then I can see how they're working together before I mix anything else. Once I have those 4 or 5 colors, I basically just start throwing paint at the canvas. I try to stay as sloppy as I can because it's really important to have a lot of energy at the beginning and to keep that energy going throughout the painting if you can. Once I have some of those big shapes filled in, I can start to see how the colors are working and I can get a good sense of if the painting is going to work at all. Usually, if it's not working, once I get those first big shapes filled in, I will just quit. I will gesso it over and move on. I'm not the kind of painter who likes to tinker with things. If it doesn't start working well right at the beginning, I junk it. I used to try to fix things and it just made me miserable. I have found that once I stop having fun, I need to really question whether I want to continue with this painting. I'm happy to say in this case, I'm having fun. It looks good, the colors are looking good, the values are looking good, so I'm going to continue with this painting. There's something else going on here that I want you to notice. I'm not being real careful. In fact, I'm doing my best to stay sloppy. I'm using big, bold strokes to get the shapes more or less like I want them, but I'm not trying to make them perfect. When I was younger, I tried to make things perfect, and sometimes that can give you a really beautiful painting, but to me it's kind of a frozen painting. I prefer to keep things as energetic and loose and sloppy as possible. So I'm forcing myself to work fast. And because acrylic dries really fast, it's a good idea to work fast in acrylic anyway. But the other advantage is this keeps me from getting too caught up in details. I'm squinting a lot, and I'm just totally avoiding even looking at details, keeping the shapes big and keeping the brush strokes loose. And the other advantage to this working fast and not thinking too much and not caring too much about details is your brush strokes will be much more interesting because they're not looking calculated. Here where I'm working on the face, you can see kind of dramatically how different it is to work from a photo that's tweaked the way I tweak my photos. You can see all the color areas and the value areas so clearly. All you have to do really is just copy them. Of course, it's not as easy as that. It's not as easy as it looks because you can't just get the colors right. The values have to be right. If something's a little too dark or a little too light, it's not going to work. But when you do get the values right, it all comes together. As things progress and you get closer to the end of the painting, the big challenge is to not get too careful. The big danger here is you fall in love with your painting and you don't want to screw it up. And that's a recipe for disaster because when you get too careful, you start to freeze up and you lose some of that energy and life that you were putting into the painting. So you've got to maintain that looseness all the way through to the end of the painting. And I'm not going to pretend it's easy. This is one of my biggest challenges. But when you do that, your painting is going to be much more alive and much more compelling. So right now it looks like I'm breaking my own rule about getting caught up in details. But when you have a painting that's pretty loose, sometimes finishing off a few small details and making them more realistic can lend authenticity and believability to the whole painting. That's why I'm taking extra care to get these fixtures looking realistic. One of the last things I'm doing is putting the white soapy areas on Fabian's legs. This is fun because these patterns of soapy water really lend themselves to loose brushwork. Now I'm finishing up by thickening the paint on the shower walls so that they look more solid. And that's it. The painting is finished. This is the finished painting and it's called Fabian Bathing. The original has been sold, but you can still find it in poster form on my website. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed watching me paint. If you did, please like and subscribe so that you'll always be in the loop and you won't miss out on any of my videos. See you next time. Now, go paint!